I brought my notes because I know if I ad-lib, I'm going to go way over time and Ian won't have enough time to say anything, so I'll just keep it very brief. Look, a great conference. Congratulations to the organisers. I think it's been a fantastic event. The take-home message for me is that innovation is the key to success. Our industry's been very successful for that, and obviously the CRC has had an integral part of that success. So congratulations for everyone that's been involved over the last 19 years. And as a producer, I've always been very proud of our CRC and the achievements that they've had. And as a seed stock producer, I'm using the innovations on a daily basis. So all our sheep are EID tags, so I've got all the gear that goes with it, the auto drafters. I've done a mountain of performance recording. I've done a lot of DNA testing. So I know the genetic potential of every sheep on the farm and they're managed accordingly. Sue has talked to me a couple of times about retirement, but look, there's just so much happening at the moment and there's always something under the horizon that I want to be a part of. So we just keep on putting that little question off at this stage. And when we talk about what's over the horizon, value-based marketing is such an important thing for us as an industry. You know, when we sell our wool and our wheat, we've got a very good idea of why we got the price that we did. And to get that same feedback on our sheep will be so important. And as a seed stock producer, it will even be more valuable when I can get that information at the sheep level. So we do a lot of DNA testing, but if I can actually identify the sire lines that not only produce the growth rates that my clients are after, but also producing the yield that the processors are after, and most importantly, producing the eating quality that the consumers are after, it's a real win-win situation. So there's a lot of good stuff happening there. Just personally, I'd also like an electronic tag reader that I can point and read a tag from 20 metres. Okay, I'm just finding those sheep getting a little bit faster every year, and unless I find that tag reader from 20 metres, the retirement might come a little bit earlier than I anticipate. Look, the CRC board has been actively finding a home for this unfinished business, and I've been fortunate enough to get to a number of their meetings. And at those meetings, I've often talked about how do we continue the legacy of the CRC? How do we build on the legacy? Or perhaps we can also frame it, how do we fill the void post-CRC? So based on that, they've actually asked me to come along and give a bit of a talk on how I think we need to be looking at the future of the CRC. So when we're talking about the future of the CRC, obviously we need to look at the successes as it stands at the moment. And when I first drew up this list, it was pages long, so I really had to condense it down pretty quickly. But I just want to talk about a couple here. And firstly, the collaboration of the partners. This has been essential for the success of the CRC. And I think if there's one message I'd like you to take home is that as participants of the CRC, we need to make sure, well, it's everybody's responsibility that we do continue that collaboration. We can't just leave it up to MLA or the other RDCs. I think the CRC has seen the development of a mature culture of cooperation, collaboration and co-investment, and I think it's important that that does continue. Certainly producers are expecting for that to continue. I'm sure the government is also expecting that to continue. They've put a lot of money into the CRC, and it'd be a really big disappointment from their point of view if everybody just packed up and went home once the money run out. I think the peak industry councils have an important role to play in this, SheepProducers Australia and Wool Producers Australia, and they have a great opportunity to actually facilitate the continued engagement of all the partners of the CRC, and I'll talk a bit more about that later on. The active and engaged sheep industry, I could talk about this one for hours, but I won't spend much time on it. Obviously the sheep industry is very strong at the moment. The industry is very keen to reinvest in the industry. We know if we stand still, we'll get left behind. I love the analogy yesterday of change being like a steamroller. If you're not part of the steamroller, you're part of the road. We need to make sure that we are moving ahead of the industry. If we stand still, we're going to get left behind very, very quickly. I was just going to raise one point. I saw an AFI report a couple of years ago, and I think the key line was something to the effect, will big data be the death of the family farm, or will it be its renaissance? I'm a firm believer that it will be the renaissance, and listening to Mark Moore to me yesterday was absolutely fantastic. But I think it's fair to say that a lot of our producers don't have the skills and expertise that Mark do. They can't write their own program if there's one not available. So it's very important with managing big data for the people that are writing apps and writing the software that it needs to be in a form that's easy to use. Bear in mind there are connectivity issues, but people soon lose interest if they're collecting a lot of data, it takes a lot of time and they're not getting the information back that they need. I've always encouraged producers, if they're not too sure about it themselves, perhaps get someone else to do it, and for two reasons. Firstly, the value of the information coming back depends on the quality of the information going in, so you'll get it done right. The other thing is that it gives you good feedback on what it's actually costing your business. If you're not doing that, it's very easy to underestimate the time that you put into it or the value of your time that's put into it, so you can actually work out whether you're getting a good return on that investment. Just quickly, I'd also like to congratulate MLA on the work they're doing at Carwoola Station, where they're actually ground truthing some of the gizmos that are out there as producers. There's just so much technology out there, and probably we don't know the questions to ask. So I think we need more Carwoola stations around the country to actually ground truth this technology, so we're not investing our hard-earned dollars into technology that becomes obsolete or is not going to be supported in the near future. So that's a great innovation. I'd really like to support that. The RDCs have been essential for the success of this CRC. I was going to talk about funding. I think that's been raised a fair bit about the future of the work that the CRC's done, and obviously there's been a big hole left in the budget with the loss of the CRC. So we need to find new and innovative ways, non-traditional ways of actually funding the work that we want to do. And if I go back to the first point about collaboration, if you can demonstrate that you are a strong and cohesive industry, you have a much better chance of getting people on board to support your industry, not just financially but in other ways as well. So I think that is very important. The research partners, the point I was going to make here has been covered quite extensively. You know, the students that have come through have had an opportunity through the CRC to sink their teeth into some real research, and it's going to be a great disappointment. We can't afford to let that go. We need to keep these bright young minds involved with our industry and not let them go off doing medicine and that other sort of stuff. Okay, so how do we achieve this collaboration post-CRC? Sheep Producers Australia and Wool Producers Australia have been talking to the CRC board about having another conference in 12 months' time. Now, we've got March 2020 up there at this stage. Some people have suggested it should be before then, but I'll leave that up to the SPA boards and the WPA boards as to when they think they can fit that in. And the whole idea of this conference is that we get together and we continue to ask this question that's been coming up a fair bit during this conference: what next? You know, how do we continue, or how do we build on the collaboration or the legacy of the CRC? So there's some very important questions that we need to be looking at over the next 12 months. And certainly a conference like this will be a great opportunity. I'd also like to include the Livestock Research Council. So we've got the Southern Australian Livestock Research Council and the Western Australian Livestock Research Council. So they actually provide information or advice to MLA about how they should be spending their levy dollars on R&D. They've got a fantastic network of producers all across the sheep producing area of Australia. They've also got their head around, in a good way, the requirements of R&D and E&A, the extension and adoption. They're really picking up on the importance of extension and adoption to make sure the R&D does get on the ground. So I'd like to get them involved. There are a number of other organisations that we could get to that very first conference. Very important. So, as I said before, there is some unfinished business, so it'll be a great opportunity to get the people that have taken on that IP to come and talk about Ask Bill, to talk about the meat science, to talk about the DNA business. A great opportunity to update. At the same time, Sheep Producers Australia and Wool Producers Australia are currently putting together a sheep sustainability framework. I've got no doubt there will be a lot of questions coming out of that framework, a lot of opportunities for future R&D. So we can actually be looking at that. But also at the same time, the sheep industry strategic plan needs to be reviewed. So currently it's due to finish in 2020, and I see that strategic plan as being the guiding template for future R&D priorities in our industry. It can set some aspirational benchmarks of where we want to go as an industry. So just finally, I'm going to pick up on a comment that Roger Fletcher's been banging on about the governance of our industry. So I'll just go back to Sheep Producers Australia and Wool Producers Australia. So the state farming organisations have been saying, and producers for many years, that we really just need one peak industry council. So currently we've got the two organisations. They have the same membership. They're talking to the same audience about the same animal. So it makes a lot of sense if in March 2020 we can have the announcement that we've got an inspirational and aspirational organisation that's going to manage all the sheep industry. I must stress that the conference in 2020 is not reliant on that happening. I'm just putting on my most ambitious glasses at the moment and saying that'd be a fantastic idea. So at that conference, if we had one sheep peak industry council talking on behalf of all sheep producers, talking to everyone involved with the industry, developing an aspirational plan for the future, and continuing to answer that question, what's next? Thank you very much.